Hi everyone, thank you so much for joining this afternoon. In this webinar, we'll discuss the mindset, preferences, and behaviors of Gen Z to equip financial marketers and the insights needed to effectively engage and attract this digital savvy demographic. Our speakers today include our media manager, Kaylin Gallagher-LaRoche, and Julia McGettigan, our digital media coordinator. Lastly, my name is Kelly Langley, and I am a account coordinator on our client services team, and I will be your moderator for today's webinar. So we'll go ahead and jump right into it. So Kaylin, let's talk about the different generations and define who will we be discussing today.
Absolutely. So depending on what source you are using, the exact years for the different generations will vary a little bit on either end. But for today's purposes, we are looking at boomers as being the ages or being born 1946 to 1964, Gen X being 1965 to 1979, millennials being 1980 to 1994, Gen Z, who we'll primarily be speaking about today, being born between 1995 and 2012, and then Gen Alpha being 2013 to 2025. Like I said, those ages do change a little bit depending on what source you're looking at, but for today's purposes, those are primarily what we're going to be using.
So as Kaylin mentioned, we'll be discussing the Generation Z, so 1995 between 2012, making this group an age range of 12 to 27. Kaylin, why do you believe it's important that we discuss this demographic for financial institutions to be able to narrow in on?
So 12 to 27, that's a pretty wide age group. 15 years, there's a lot that happens within those 15 years. So on the lower end, 12-year-olds, maybe they're first getting their allowance and starting to get, more than the $5 a week from mom and dad, up to, you're in high school, you have your first part-time job, and maybe you're starting to save up for your first car, or when you get to college, and maybe you're working to support yourself through college. And then on the higher end, up to 27, where you've been in your career, you've been there for a few years, you're starting to get established. And so this is an age group that they're starting to have money. Again, whether it's the 12-year-olds with their allowance or people who are starting to get established in their career, they are an age group that we want to make sure we're paying attention to, because when they start having more money and needing to make those financial decisions, you want to make sure that you're considering that you haven't been alienating them for all of your marketing efforts.
As Kaylin talked about, not alienating them. So because this age range is so vast, this is a good time where you can have different accounts and different product offerings to start them on their financial journey, but also have those more adult offerings where they do have the money to put into these different accounts, and starting them really young with a young type savers account will start to build that trust with an FI, and they'll be able to carry their accounts all the way through into adulthood when they are starting so young.
Absolutely. Great points, Julia. And that's an excellent way for us to segue into my next question. We now understand the importance of reaching this generation. Financial institutions are aiming to meet the needs of Gen Z. Can we talk about some of those characteristics that may contribute to how a Gen Zer chooses a financial partner?
Absolutely. So there's a couple of key things that are really important to keep in mind when thinking about this age group. And one of them is that they have had the most access to the internet and to emerging technologies than any previous generation. So Google was launched, I believe it was like 1998, I believe. And so schools in the early 2000s had internet. They were starting to teach those internet literacy classes, teaching kids how to use and be safe on the internet. So they have completely been raised with it and they're the most savvy when it comes to these different technologies. And so because of that, they tend to be more socially aware than other generations have been. So we want to make sure that brands are sharing what they believe in Historically, it has been said that brands should not take a stance that you don't want to alienate anyone, you don't want to ruffle anyone's feathers. But with Gen Z, they want to know what brands stand for. They want to know that they are making buying decisions and partnering with companies that have the same beliefs and values that they do. The way that brands and agencies are, talking about sharing messages is changing, and making sure that we are saying what a brand believes in and having that front and center it's key now.
And to keep pushing this messaging that brands need to start sharing with their audience, Gen Z really expects to have a digital experience. So keeping that messaging out in front on the front line of your social media, it's easily accessible for people to find, and that also just sets your brand apart by having your stance readily available. So social media plays an incredible role in Gen Z's lives. You are pretty much able to find them on almost every social media platform, but mostly they're on Instagram, Snapchat, and TikTok. So while those three are really prominent in Gen Z's lives, we do still want to focus efforts with Facebook, Twitter, and even Pinterest for that matter. So just kind of diversifying where you can reach them is really important to build that brand awareness. But brand awareness can also come from parents utilizing an FI that they trust and then passing that on to their kids. So their kids might just join and make an account because of already building that trustworthy connection. So they want to be able to have that ease of choice rather than just being a little bit lost, when it comes to financial institutions, which there are so many out there to choose from.
So with what Julia was saying, let's dig a little bit deeper into the digital experience trends. As a generation, we grew up with the ability to make decisions right at the click of our fingertips. What abilities does Gen Z expect from their financial institution?
So because Gen Z has grown up constantly with ads and the internet, as Kaylin mentioned before, brands really need to stand out with their messaging and to get their message across very quickly. And over time, we've seen that the average attention span from millennials has slowly decreased, and now Gen Z has shortened that by 33%. So their attention span is around 8 seconds. So we want to use that imagery and messaging that captures Gen Z's attention. So kind of out there messaging, but we want to keep it quick and to the point, because if Gen Z doesn't identify with that messaging, they're just going to keep going on past and not care about it.
Definitely. And following with that shorter attention span is that the digital products that banks or credit unions offer, they have to be easy and they have to work. So making sure that you have online account opening, that you have the tools to manage and pay bills on your mobile app, that you can make all of your payments, whether it's setting auto pay or sending money, through Zelle or whatever to friends, that you have to have those tools and they have to be easy to use. And this really applies to online applications. So if they're opening a checking account online, or maybe it's that older Gen Z that's applying for their first mortgage, the applications have to be simple to use. One of the things that we often see is that we get great numbers of users who are starting an application, but only 20-30% will actually complete it. And that's because either the application is too long, users didn't know what they needed when they started it, so they didn't have all the documents that they had handy, or something in the application maybe isn't working. Maybe there's a particular point in there where they have to choose a location that they don't want to have to commit to. There's all kinds of reasons within an application why someone may abandon, but ultimately you have to make it as streamlined and as simple as possible. And you want to be upfront with them about all the documents that they're going to need, so that way they can get everything ready before they start on that process. That way you'll have the greatest likelihood for them to start and finish and ultimately become a customer. And so especially for those kind of higher end items, so like start applying for a mortgage or maybe a home equity line of credit, something like that, those bigger ticket items that your FI customers need, there needs to be a convenience factor as well. So having it online is great, but if someone is a little bit nervous and wants to make sure they're doing everything right, they need to be able to go into a location and having those hours be convenient so that way, they can get the help that they need when they need it. Most companies work from 9 to 5. So if a FI is closing at 4 or 4:30, that makes it really hard to go in and get an appointment without taking time out of your day job. So, having the digital products, having those be easy is great and is absolutely vital for getting access to this audience, but also making sure that you have that customer support still as well.
So as we discussed a little bit earlier, Gen Z is a very young audience, and some of us may be unaware of products that can help us to reach these financial goals that we have in mind. My question is, how do we speak to them and educate them about available resources and benefits from my financial institution?
Definitely. So when it comes to the messaging, best practice is going to be to speak to them with, quick and to the point messaging. So this goes back to having an 8-second attention span. It needs to be easy and it needs to be quick. Needs to be very digestible. So you want to make sure that you're captivating their attention. So if it's, about financial literacy, do it in like a short form video or do it something in bullets, things that are very easy to digest, that you're going to be able to establish within those 8 seconds, essentially.
Yeah, I think because of that short, quick attention span, we automatically want to think, okay, gravitate towards social media and share what we can on social media. So by posting different basics of definitions, so basics of savings, what is a CD? All of those little basic things can slowly build up that knowledge that I think Gen Z is kind of missing, because going out there to do your research is kind of a long, taxing process where, as we said, it just needs to be really quick. And because it's financial literacy is not taught in schools, social media is that great way to start a basic building block of what exactly they might need to learn as they start to grow older and need to care more about what their money is going into. I think blogs are also a great way to captivate Gen Z. I know it's something to read, but the information is still there. And if people are searching for things, they're going to want something that just pops up and there's their information right there in a blog post. I also know that Gen Z is into podcasts. So, starting a podcast about different topics and speaking about the different lifestyles that every single Gen Z lives. Everyone lives differently. So having that information on these different types of platforms will really give Gen Z a wide range of options to also choose from when they're trying to learn about these general topics.
Absolutely. So now that we've discussed kind of the tone and voice behind speaking to Gen Z, let's talk about where we are marketing to them. What platform should we be targeting Gen Z on, and where can we reach them?
Definitely. So Julia mentioned a couple of them, that podcasts are huge and blogs. People joke about YouTube Academy, but it really is a place where people are going and learning things through quick videos. So having a presence on YouTube, again, videos are key, things that people don't have to really read too much. So making sure that you are able to reach them wherever it is that they're searching. So YouTube is a great one. Social is another great one, like Julia has mentioned previously. But the key is making sure it's short and digestible, so that way you're not going to lose their attention.
I think on social media, there are a couple best practices to use when speaking to Gen Z. So, on Facebook more has long form messaging where you can write out text, and same with, TikTok videos, is you can really get into some of the content that you want to share. Where Instagram, we're just scrolling and looking at a photo on there. So maybe photos that are more intriguing or have text on them that are just quick and say, oh, what is a CD? And maybe that'll captivate someone enough to go, I don't actually know what that is. Maybe I'll read this really quick. Mm-hmm. So just being able to differentiate between all of these social media platforms and utilize what you're able to offer, because the financial knowledge that we have to share ranges vastly between what type of products you might want to push. So I think that's also important when, a bank is also on LinkedIn. LinkedIn is a great business to business type of platform, but people who are now entering the workforce as the higher end of Gen Z, they might be scrolling through and utilizing LinkedIn, and that might just pop up in their feed. Because these algorithms are changing all the time. So while you do want to stay up to date of where Gen Z is at, these algorithms constantly keep pushing content. And I think that's really important to think about when you keep utilizing social media to differentiate there.
Awesome. I just saw that there's a question in the chat. How do you still stay ADA compliant with posting? Since usually they don't recommend using a lot of text in the graphic / picture.
Yeah, I think that's a great question. So usually when we look at posts and are suggesting posts for our imagery, usually it's like 3 to 5 words. We don't like to keep a lot of words on that image just because that would be a lot to digest. So best practice for us is very quick messaging, like just a few words, because we don't want to overwhelm what the actual imagery is and while staying compliant with what we're posting and what we're suggesting. But that is a great question on ADA.
Yeah, and then whatever, messages that you're trying to share, you have the option to include the introductory text. And you can include links if there's, if you have a blog or anything on that, you can add a shortened link to that to direct them to your website as well to learn more.
Awesome. Another question that I had is wanted to talk about innovation. What are some really unique campaigns or partnerships that we've seen that clients have done to really target Gen Z that have been successful? How have our clients been able to really connect with this target market?
Absolutely. We have one client who they partnered with a local college sports team as a way to reach that younger demographic. And so they've done a lot of different things to get the message about that partnership out. One of them is having a branded card, which, it's really cool colors, has the school mascot on it. So for students, that's kind of a cool thing to have, especially while you're in school or even for the faculty there. And as far as getting the message out, they've done on-campus events, financial literacy events at the school, which is fantastic. And then for their campaign, we did a lot of really great tactics, including Snapchat story ads, Spotify ads. We had some programmatic display, and I believe, Facebook and Instagram as well, but really focusing more on those awareness-based tactics. And we geo-fence the college campus to make sure that, it was those students and faculty who were seeing the messaging. So using the tools and the platforms that audience is primarily on really helped get them to get students to open new accounts and to adopt that new branded card that they had. The cool thing about the Spotify ads is you're able to reach that audience when they aren't actively looking at a screen. So whether it's, students who are warming up before practice or they're at the gym, walking in between classes, whatever it is, listening to podcasts or music, we're still able to reach them with that branded message. So really great way to get the awareness out, and you have these cool looking cards and each other friends, hey, look what I got, and refer them to the bank. So really cool thing that we've seen go on there.
Absolutely, I agree. I've had some experience working with this client as well, and it's been great to see this partnership continue to grow and just expand and do great on the performance of those different ads that Kaylin discussed. Well, I also wanted to thank everybody for joining today. We appreciate your support in joining our webinars. If you have any other additional questions, I am also available. You can send me an email. My email is klangley, Langley, @panosmarketing.com, and we'd be happy to continue the conversation after this webinar is over. Thanks everyone for joining.